Welcome to So Very Easy. My name is Laura, and our cutting mats are very hard workers in our sewing room. They take a lot of abuse, not only from cutting on them, but with the fabric that we use. Some of the fabric might not be color safe. We also often draw on our cutting mats, and they definitely have our patterns sitting on top of them, regardless if it's magazines, books, printouts, any type of paper sits on our mats. All of these things have one thing in common: inks and dyes, which means a lot of that ink and dye can get transferred onto our cutting mats. So not only are we cutting it up, but we're dirtying it up. So let's clean it up. Everything that we need to clean our mats, we most likely will have in our home. Room temperature water, we don't need anything hotter. A cloth that we can get wet, a drying cloth. A little scrubby that we would have in the kitchen. An eraser, and it won't matter what kind of eraser. And a gentle cleaner. We do not need a harsh cleaner. Matter of fact, a harsh cleaner would not be recommended. Something gentle is all we're going to need, like dish detergent. There are a couple of different designs of cutting mats. We have the cutting mats that are designed to do quilting with, so they really can take the abuse of a rotary cutter. We also have larger mats called Pinnable Mats. So this mat underneath is a very large mat. It's 34 inches by about 57 inches, and it's called a Pinnable Mat. Now, if you're looking for a big mat, you'll be able to find these in larger fabric stores. They're big rolls. I have found them by the cutting station and by the front desk. And these are designed to pin on, like dressmaking. The quilting mats are designed with a heavier fabric so they can take more of the rotary cutting. There are some mats, when we do cut certain fabrics, the fabric and the fibers get stuck inside of the little cuts that we make. So we do have these little furs sticking up. The first thing before we wash our mats, we need to get rid of this little fur. It is a fiber, so if you wet it, it gets bigger and sticks harder in those cracks. So we need to take them out when they're dry, and that's where an eraser is going to come in handy, and it won't matter the eraser. And this can be done every time you see it happens, so we can keep on top of it. And the eraser, we just erase those marks, and it won't matter what direction we go in. The eraser is gentle, but it pulls those little fibers out of the cracks. So the first thing we need to do is make sure we have no fibers stuck in all of those little cuts. And when we're finished erasing that, we could just brush off all the fibers. Now we can clean the mat. You're going to be able to clean all the mats in the same way. The first thing I like to do is wet my mat. And we can use a spray bottle with water, or just use a very wet cloth. But I just like to spray my surface and then add a drop or two. And really, that's all we are going to need. If the mat is very dirty, you're going to be able to use a kitchen scrubber. And that's going to work by getting into some of those little cuts. So we can just scrub those little cut areas that have the dirt. And it won't hurt if you want to do the entire mat with a little bit of a scrub. You want to use something gentle because you do not want to scrape off all of those beautiful lines in the mat. And you can see how 2 drops really does go quite far. From there, we're going to be able to wipe off the soap. If your mat is small enough, you're going to be able to take this to the sink and the bathtub and do it. So you can wash your mats and rinse them. But if your mats are big, we're going to have to do them right on the surface. So rinse until all of the soap is taken off. Once the soap is all taken off, we can let this dry on its own. If you need to use this right away, you can dry it. But I would recommend leaving it wet. The water is not going to hurt the mat, it's just going to help moisturize it. If you find your mats really need a lot of TLC, take a wet cloth and just cover the entire mat with just plain water and have them sit on top of the mat. And they can sit there overnight if you'd like. If you let that sit overnight, you might not need any soap because this is already going to just work out all of the dirt. And let it dry on its own. If your mats are reversible, the next day, just flip it over and do the back side. If you want to do both sides the same day, just give them a good dry. And that's all there is to maintaining the mats. We can keep off those little fuzzies every time it happens with an eraser, little water, gentle soap, a scrub if you need it, and drying, and we're done. Cutting mats do not like high heat, so do not use hot water. Only room temperature, even cool water is all you're going to need. And they don't like sun. So keep them out of the sun and keep them out of hot cars like trunks, because the mats will warp in some sun and the trunk. So if you are traveling with a mat, be sure to keep it as flat as you can in a cool area. And that way it will not warp. And to store your mats, I would recommend always storing them flat. So you can leave them stacked up on a cutting table or have them stacked up under the cutting table. Keeping them flat and out of the sun and the heat will also help prolong your mats. So with some everyday items that we have in our house, we're going to be able to maintain our cutting mats, keep them clean, and that's going to help them last a whole lot longer. Thank you for joining me today on So Very Easy. Feel free to subscribe, and as always, come on back. Let's see what we're cleaning next time in the sewing room. Bye for now.